Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inspired and Empowered Living TV show and podcast. And we are live on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern on talk4tv.com, w4wn.com, and my YouTube channel. And you can hear us on the podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Pandora, Amazon, and many more. And today we continue on with our new chapter series. And today is episode 2, Why Your Soul is Calling You Forward. And so today we're going to be talking about if you have really wondered, why are you feeling this way? What's going on? You've outgrown your current chapter and you're feeling certain things, and we're going to explore more deeply and more powerfully how your soul is calling you forward and what you can do to allow yourself to listen to your soul, and much more information to follow. So let's jump in and let's talk about, so last week we talked about how you've outgrown your current chapter. Now, know that could be in any area of your life. It could be in work and business, or it could be in a relationship, or even a place where you're living, or where you need to move. So that next chapter can be many places, many levels, many ways that it's coming out in your life. And it could be one way, or it could be more than one. So what I want to ask you is, if you wonder, why am I feeling this way? Or why can't I just be happy with where I'm at? Or why do I keep feeling I'm called to something more? And so we're going to be exploring this important truth, that your longing isn't necessarily a dissatisfaction. It may be your soul calling you into the next level of your expansion. And sometimes this is definitely, your soul knows what's next before your mind knows or can even understand it. So let's talk about the soul and what I want you to know is your soul is designed to grow. In fact, that's why we're in Earth School. Yes, we are all in Earth School. And we came to this planet to learn, to grow, to evolve, to become better, to become kinder and more loving and caring and compassionate towards ourselves and others. And those are some of the ways that our soul is growing. And what I want to remind you is that everything in nature, because we're all connected, is growing and evolving. Trees grow, flowers grow, seasons change, and you are also designed to evolve. And again, you came to this planet, this incarnation. I'm getting spiritual on you, but I really want to support you in remembering that you are here for a reason. And and I'll give you one, you're here to grow and evolve. Two, you are here to discover, to learn, and then to live your soul purpose, your life mission. And part of that is listening and evolving into and following your intuition to get guided every step of the way. Now, you aren't the same person you were 10 years ago, and you aren't even the same person you were a year ago, 6 months ago, not even yesterday. Because every day, every moment, we are actually growing and evolving. You may feel like the same person, but I just want you to know your cells are constantly dying and regenerating. Every part of your body, or most parts of your body, are growing and regenerating and changing. So even on a physical level, you're not the same person you were. But what ends up happening is that our minds and our mindset can keep us stuck in those old patterns, in these old ways. And what I want you to know is that every chapter of your life, every day of your life is here to teach you something. So I invite you to have an inspired and empowered life. I invite you to ask, you could ask in the beginning of the day, what's the message that I learned today? And at the end of the day, before you go to sleep, is ask, what have I learned today? What have I discovered today? And make every day count. And what I also want you to know is that every chapter of your life is preparing you for the next chapter and the next chapter. And growth is a sign that you are moving in new directions. It's a positive sign. It's an expansive sign. It's a wonderful sign. And it's actually evidence that you're alive and you're on the journey of your soul. And so I'm going to ask you this question, and everybody kind of take a breath and tune in as much as you can, because if you're driving or operating machinery, then you can always come back. But take a breath, and I want you to tune in and breathe. And my question for you is, where in your life are you resisting your own growth? Because in order for you to follow your soul's guidance, you need to be aware where there's resistance, where there's fear, where you're feeling the energy blocks of where you're being called forward. And so it's important to discover where you may be resisting. So I'm going to repeat the question. Where in your life are you resisting your own growth? And okay, so we have messages, we have questions coming in. So Mickey asked, is the next chapter any better, is the question. So what I'm going to support you, Mickey, and all of you, is to know that the next chapter, because our soul wants growth, because we're moving towards growth and evolution, your next chapter and my support and intention for you is that it's going to be a better chapter. But this is the thing. You need to do your piece, your work to help make it so. So, and we're going to be talking about in this series what it is you need to do, like what it is you need to let go of, and what do you need to do to create this next chapter. That's all part of the series. And so Mickey, as we go through the series, and all of you, I want to hear what's coming up for you, and if there's any other questions or specific questions about what we're talking about. So my hope, my desire for you is that the next chapter is a better chapter than the one before. And you know how like in a story, if you think about a book and you think about a story, that you have chapters in a story, and I'm hoping that as you move through and as you grow and as you evolve, your life and your chapters get better and better and better. And that's about you. And I'll just give it briefly. It's about you clearing the old energy. And then it's about being present to where you're going, following your intuition on the next steps. And it's about the manifestation and the work involved to manifest, to take the actions that you need to take to create a better next chapter. So hopefully that answered your question, Mickey. And if there's any other pieces to that or anything else you'd like, let me know. Anastasia says, why does it feel like we aren't getting places? So what I want to support you in thinking about, Anastasia, is suppose it's not about getting places. What if it's about becoming? And it's about you becoming and being so that you are creating and manifesting that next chapter. And so you may feel like you're not getting any places, but what I want you to know is that whatever's going on for you, and that's why I invite you to ask yourself, what is the message for the day, or what do I need to be on the lookout for? And at the end of the day, what have I learned today? Now, some people start their days with gratitudes. That's another possibility, because when you start your day with gratitudes, that also sets up a very positive state. You want to be in a positive state of mind, in what I call a higher vibration. And those really, the way you know that you are is by how you're feeling. It's about feeling more peace, or feeling more love or joy, or excitement about the day ahead or about what's coming. Now, I also want you to know, it's not like you may feel this every moment of the day. But it's about helping yourself get back into the alignment. Remember, we've talked about alignment, those of you who have been listening to us, how getting back into that alignment of the body, mind, emotions, spirit. And when you're back in the alignment, you can follow your intuition. What's the next step you need to take? Or allow yourself to be guided or tuned in to what you need. And here's the thing, sometimes the step, very important step I'm about to say, the biggest step is about perhaps getting clarity. Or maybe it's learning to go within, to quiet your mind enough so that you can hear or feel or sense or know what's next for you. And here's the thing, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but you may not know the whole plan. You may not have it all figured out. And all of that is totally okay. You don't need to know the biggest vision. It's just following the next step or that sense, that feeling. Something's calling me, something, my soul is calling me to something. And what I invite you to do is be in the place of wonder, curiosity. What am I being invited to? What could it be? And really start looking at, what do you love? What brings you joy? What brings you passion? When you're following your passion, you're on the right track. So hopefully that helps. And then Misty asked, not easy, or she says, not easy to see the learned information. No, it's not always easy, especially when you're in the middle of something and you can't always know exactly what it is you're learning. But maybe if you ask the question, because what I want to invite you and what I want you to know is that when you ask questions, the energy of asking a question itself actually opens a space energetically for information to come through, for new possibilities, for new awarenesses and understandings. So if you were to ask yourself at the end of the day, and you may even want to put it in a journal, what I learned today is, and it could be a very simple thing, like, what I learned today is, like, I'll give you an example. I just did a session with a friend, and we were working on marketing. And I learned a lot of information about marketing, but it's really exciting to me. So what I learned today is a lot about marketing. But the other thing is, what I learned today could be something small, like I learned to remember to smile, or I learned to, yeah, and it's really interesting that I just said that, because when you can't have a frown and a smile at the same time. So what ends up happening is when you smile, you actually change your brain chemistry. Isn't that interesting? So you just learned something new today. Well, some of you may know it. Some of you, that may be new. So giving you examples, and this, it could be anything. It could be anything from a conversation that you've had. Maybe it's something that you heard or felt or learned about on the show today, or maybe it's something you read in a book or online. There's so much, and I invite you all now. I invite you to start looking for information, for the information for what you learned today. And so Misty, it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be a little thing, because every little thing counts. Every little piece of information, every little learning, everything, every little step makes a difference. Like I tell a lot of clients, like, one of the things and I think I've even used it on the show as well. When you're getting ready to walk out a door, but let's say you're really feared because you know that there's something else on the other side. This is really powerful, especially because we're talking about your next chapter. So on the other side of the door is your next chapter. But you're like, oh my God, it feels really scary. Oh my gosh, how am I going to do this next chapter? But, some people may be able to take quantum leaps. Some people may be able to take big steps. Some people may be able to take steps. And even if you take a baby step, It may take you longer, and I really want you to know that's okay. It's okay. You're stepping forward. You're stepping forward, and even those baby steps will get you towards the door. The challenge is, and we will talk about this in the series as well, is when you feel so much fear and you feel really stuck that you can't even move forward. You can't even take a baby step. And I really want you to know, I know what that feels like. Okay. I have been in those places where I felt so paralyzed that I couldn't even take a baby step because I had so much fear. I believe that when you're in that paralysis, your paralyzing fear, it's more like terror or panic. And so the job for you is, if that happens, that's the work you need to do, is working on clearing and healing the terror or the panic so that you can take the next step forward, even if it's a baby step. So I'm hoping that helps all of you to look at. So let's talk about the signs that your soul is calling you forward. So the first sign is, if you feel, now you may get one of the signs, you may get some of the signs, but I'm giving you ideas that your soul is calling you forward. I feel like saying your soul is calling you forward. I need to be silly. I want to be silly. Anyway, so sign number one, you feel this persistent longing for something new and for something more than you've been doing, or something more where you're feeling the energy that there's something else that you are being called to. Now, you may not know what it is, but you can feel this longing. You feel a longing for something more. And that's one of the signs for you to really listen to. Sign number two, you feel restless, even when you are, or you may appear, or you feel things are going well, or you're looked at as really successful, or you appear successful, because you may not feel successful, but you really are. Just want to let you know. But you're feeling this restlessness under that success. And what that means is that there's something else calling you forward to something else you need to be doing. You know, this popped into my head. I have a mentor. Some of you may know her. Her name is Marcy Shimoff. And Marcy Shimoff has wrote the book. I can't think of the exact name, but she's like the happiness expert. But what was happening is she was actually in the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and she was one of the co-editors or writers for the women's series Chicken Soup for the Soul. And she was really successful, and she was really, lots of things were happening for her. It was what she always wanted, but she was feeling this restlessness. And so what happened when she tells the story, because I've heard the story several times, and what she said was that she really felt this restlessness. And then what started happening is she started feeling that she wasn't happy. And she really started wondering what would make her happy. She's really successful. Why isn't she happy? Well, what ended up happening is she started studying how to be happy. And now she's teaching it. And she wrote a book about it. So even though I can't remember the exact name of the book, if you do Marcy Shimoff and happiness, the book I'm sure will show up if you're interested. So just know that even if you are successful, you can still feel restless if there's something, if your soul is calling you into something new. And Marcy listened to the signs. She listened to the signs that there was something else there for her. And that's how she ended up into her next chapter of following happiness. So another sign is you feel drawn to new opportunities, and you're exploring new things, or you're feeling that desire to explore new opportunities. And when you are in that place, your soul is calling you towards those new opportunities. I'll give you an example from my own life. So I've been a holistic psychotherapist for many, many years. And at the time, this was years ago, I was doing emotional release work with a friend, and there was a book on the shelf, and I was being guided to get the book. And that book was all about the soul and what happens to the soul in between our lifetimes. And then what I knew that I needed to have that opportunity of being able to explore what that would be like. So I had this hypnosis session where I went with a hypnotherapist to in between my lifetime. So I understood it. And I knew, even when I was reading the book, I knew I needed to become a hypnotherapist. And the person who led me on the journey became my hypnosis teacher. So my soul and I was being drawn to these new opportunities. Now, years ago, I said, maybe one day I'll be a hypnotherapist, but it wasn't something I was planning. But after this experience, I knew that was what I needed to do. And what I love to do is to take people on soul journeys in a hypnotic trance. So that was part of what my soul was calling me forward in the new opportunities. And so it's listening to those messages. So another sign that your soul is calling you forward is that you keep receiving the same message over and over and over again. And you will keep receiving the message, and sometimes it'll get louder and louder and louder until you listen. Or something happens and then you need to listen. So you keep getting the message and the same message, then it's about taking action. It's about taking action. Like, for example, and one of the ways that can come is through your feelings. So I'll give you an example. My client, Emily, she came into a session and she was feeling really angry and irritated and frustrated with her part-time job. And she had been getting this sense that it just wasn't working for her anymore. And she was getting upset and feeling more and more burnt out with the part-time job and didn't really want it anymore. But she didn't really know if she should let it go or not, or if she could afford to let it go. So she kept receiving the same message. So during the session, I led her through a guided meditation where she connected with her higher self, and we asked, Is it for her highest good to let go of this part-time job? And will it be okay financially for her? So the answer was yes, let go of that part-time job, and you could pick up hours in your full-time job, or she'll be okay financially. And sure enough, it worked out. She let go of that. She made the decision. She let go of the part-time job, and she hasn't looked back. So that is an example of receiving the message. And a lot of times the message may come. It may not be like, oh, listen to the message, like, hello, I'm giving you the message again. Hello, hello, hello. What happens is very often the message will come in a feeling. Like if you keep getting really angry, and you're angry at something or some situation, or maybe you're feeling really sad, or or fearful, like there's something else that's happening for you. So a lot of times the messages can come through your feelings. So that's another way you can look how your soul is calling you forward. And sign number 5, you can no longer ignore your deeper desires. And those are the desires that maybe you hadn't planned, like life happened, and you're in the middle of your life, you're in midlife. How many of you are having or know of people that had midlife crisis? It's because maybe you felt like you had to go into a job or a career because this person said, or this is comfortable, this is stable, or you're conditioned, or your fear put you there, or whatever. And then all of a sudden you start saying, my desire, like for example, my desire to make a bigger difference, my desire to keep moving forward and keep following my intuition. And so your desires are perhaps like, maybe it's starting your own business, or maybe it's writing that book, or teaching, or following a spiritual path, or expanding your impact. Your soul guidance often begins as a whisper before it becomes a calling. So it's learning to listen to the whispers and learning to listen to the callings. And what I want to say is that if you're wanting to interpret, or you're not sure what your soul is calling, if you need that clarity or understanding of what your soul is guiding you, then I invite you to join me for a complimentary intuitive breakthrough session. And during the session, we're going to go deeper into helping you to get the clarity that your soul is guiding you towards, and what step or steps you can take to start moving towards it. And so you're going to go to the name of the show, Inspired and Empowered Living.com/session, SESSION. And Rebel, can you, yes, she put it on the screen, and also please put it in the chat. So again, it's Inspired and Empowered Living.com/session. And that's for a complimentary intuitive breakthrough session to explore what your soul is calling you towards and helping you to get the clarity that you need. So we have a question from Nikki. And okay, so how would I describe a midlife crisis? Okay, So we have a question from Misty, and then we'll get to Mickey's question. And Rebel, can you put the link for the session? I don't know if people can see the link that you originally posted before they came on. And we'll get to Misty's. So Misty's question is, how would you describe a midlife crisis? So the way that I would describe a midlife crisis is all of a sudden, it's to me, we have labeled it the midlife crisis. And for those of you who are listening, I'm doing air quotes. Okay. We have labeled it as a midlife crisis, but really what I feel it is a midlife calling. And what it is that it's exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the next chapter. Like you're feeling that restlessness, or you're feeling something something is calling you to move towards something that you haven't done yet, or you may have a desire you've always wanted to do, or something that feels like you are you have could be an awakening. Some people's midlife crisis, and I keep putting it in air quotes, midlife crisis, air quotes, is really an awakening. To me, what I feel is, let's look at it as an awakening of you becoming and moving towards your soul's evolution. And you, where in the past, you may have been conditioned by family or fears, or you may have been afraid to listen to yourself over other people. But what happens during this midlife crisis, and air quotes, I'm going to call it the midlife calling. And what happens during that is you start listening to you. And you start hearing and feeling and sensing that there's something, you're being called, or you feel that restlessness because your soul is calling you to something new. It's your next chapter. And that's what the midlife crisis, challenge, calling is all about. It's really about allowing yourself to be really guided, moving towards where your soul is calling you to be. So hopefully that answered the question for you, Misty. Let me know if there's anything else. And Mickey asked, does everyone have a midlife crisis? So does everyone, you know what? I don't think there's everyone has everything. We're all unique individuals. And so there are people that don't have a midlife crisis. There are people that if they feel on track, or they feel like they're moving forward, or, for some people, that midlife crisis, it becomes a crisis because it's such a huge awakening. Like it's probably sometimes when divorces happen, you wake up and you're with a partner that this doesn't feel right anymore. Or it could be you've been in the job for 25, 30 years, and then, or something like that. And all of a sudden you're like, this isn't doing it for me anymore. I want to do my own thing. I want to build my own business, or I need to move into this career, or move in this way. And so those are all examples of that calling. Now, if you're really ignoring it, it could become a crisis. Now, for those of you, some of you may know, have heard me say this, but I really want you to know the word crisis. And I used to talk about this when I was speaking. When I would do my speaking events, I should start with this. The word crisis in China, the Chinese symbol for crisis, actually is opportunity. So let's take that word instead of crisis. It's your midlife opportunity. But what happens with some people is if you're not listening at yourself at all, you could have a crisis. You could get burnt out. You could have a disease or a sickness or an illness. You could lose a job, or you could end up knowing that you're getting a divorce, or it could be that a loved one dies. And that all of those things can set you on the course for your midlife opportunity. That's what I love to think about. Your midlife opportunity. Okay. So hopefully that helped. And yeah, if you have any other questions about that, I'd be happy to answer. So let's talk about the difference between fear and soul guidance so that you're clear on that. And you ask yourself, how do I know if it's fear, or how do I know it's my intuition? And your intuition is your soul speaking to you. So just make that clear to you. And your fear says, for example, your fear will say, what if I fail? I can't try this because, oh my gosh, I may fail. Or what if people judge me? What if people judge me? Oh, I can't do that because people are going to judge me. Fear says, what if I'm wrong? Or fear says, it's easier for me to stay where it's safe. I think I'm going to stay where it's safe. Your soul says, there's more for you. You're being called. You're being called. Time to take the next step. You're being called. Really trust yourself. Trust yourself. And your soul says, you're ready. You can do it. It's time. And you'll feel that. You'll feel that. And what I also want you to know is that it's really important for you to feel the distinction, because you may feel that you need to take the next step. And you may feel there's more for you. You may feel you need to trust yourself, but maybe you don't feel ready. And there may be this fear. The fear can be overlay the truth, your soul's guidance. And so what I want to invite you is to allow yourself to move beyond the fear so that you're moving forward towards your soul's guidance. And your fear is really focusing on your protection. And it's wanting to keep you safe. But safety doesn't always mean that that's where you need to be. This is about learning to trust uncertainty. And in this uncertain world, it can be scary to trust that uncertainty, but it's moving. And remember, baby steps towards something. And what I want you to know is your soul guidance is focusing on the possibility, because there is a greater possibility for you. Your soul is calling you to something more, something greater, something better than you have now. Because that answers the question that Mickey asked in the beginning. Is it better? And I really believe your soul always wants you to move towards better. You may go through a journey to get to the better, and sometimes that journey may not always be easy. I'm going to just tell you, but it is a journey. It can be done, and your soul is calling you forward. So I invite you to reflect on these questions. What is fear saying to you? And what is your soul saying? What is your soul saying? So we are going to go into, I want to support you in knowing we're going to continue because there's a few more pieces, and then we'll go into episode 3, the fear, because this is all about what we were talking about. It's the fear of leaving the familiar. And you'll discover why fear shows up whenever you're preparing for a new chapter, and the hidden costs of fear, of what happens when you stay, when you really outgrown the chapter, and how to move on from the fear and begin the change with greater confidence and trust. And I invite you again to have a complimentary intuitive breakthrough session where you'll receive clarity about your next chapter, helping you to understand why you're stuck and what you need to know to take those next steps, and really getting in touch with what it is you need to move forward. And so, Rebel, you can post the links again. Thank you. And it's inspiredandempoweredliving.com/session. The name of the show, inspiredandempoweredliving.com/session. And I'd like to leave you with this question. Remember, what if it's time to listen to your soul's calling? So I look forward to connecting with you more next week. We're live on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern on talk4tv.com, w4wn.com, and my YouTube channel. And you can hear the podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, Apple, and many more. And I want to wish you all an inspired and empowered day, night, and week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye for now.